All right, guys, we've been talking about Freytag's arc plot or Freytag's pyramid. It's kind of a lopsided pyramid, isn't it? When you look at this thing online, it looks more like this. Okay, but I don't like the way that that looks because the whoops the both sides of this. I mean, it's very whoops. It's very symmetrical. Both sides are equal, and I don't like that because in reality, in storytelling, both sides are not equal. But enough about that. Let's talk about how this arc plot structure or this Freytag's pyramid structure actually connects to Aristotle. Basically, you take this and you divide it into parts. You divide it into its beginning, its middle, and its end, and it is that simple. I guess the question is, where do you draw those lines? And I've kind of indicated, as luck would have it, I've kind of indicated here at the two turning points that something goes down, and it actually is true. The arc plot is divided into its three acts or its three parts at these turning points, or more specifically, actually, just after these two turning points. Let me illustrate for you. Basically, the first part of our story is the beginning. We are experiencing the world of the story, or the world of the protagonist, how it exists. We call this status quo. I'll write that down here. The exposition indicates status quo. Status quo is just a fancy Latin word for the way that things are, or normal. That's another way to put it. And we hit the last event in the first act. Movie screenwriters will call it breaking into Act 2, or the break into 2. They'll call it in shorthand. And it's actually right here. Do you see how close that is? Look how close that is. That's immediately following the inciting incident. There's literally no room between the end of the inciting incident and the beginning of Act 2. This is the beginning. This is Act 1. Okay? That's what Aristotle would call the beginning. Act 2 is actually the entire rising action. It is the entire conflict. And this is a great word. I love this word. You cannot have a story without conflict. I've written stories with characters with no names. I've written stories that don't happen in any particular time or place. I have never written a story with no conflict. You absolutely need conflict. You need it. You can't have a story without it. Think about a guy who, wants to, more than anything, buy a Volkswagen Bug. Okay, he saves up his money. He gets a job really easily. He saves up a lot of money in a short amount of time. Goes to the car dealership, buys the Volkswagen Bug for cash, drives it off the lot, and then the credits start to roll. Who wants to pay money to go see that movie? Nobody. We pay money to go see characters in the highest amount of conflict possible. The conflict takes up the entire second act. Now, people will disagree with this. Some people will say that the climax of the story actually happens in Act 2, and it's the end of Act 2. Some people will say that the climax is actually the beginning of Act 3, and everything leading up to the climax has been in Act 2. So let's just draw a nice line right through it. Let's not argue with the philosophers of screenwriting or storytelling. Let's just draw a nice crooked line, apparently, right through it, okay? I don't have a ruler. This is Act 2. And this is Act 3 by default. This is the beginning, this is the middle, and this is the end. Very simple stuff, guys. Very simple stuff. Aristotle came up with this idea that every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And here we've overlaid it with Freytag's pyramid. Okay, I'm actually going to do something I thought I wouldn't do, and that's talk a little bit about Joseph Campbell. So let me talk just just a little bit about Joseph Campbell because it's going to get so good. If you don't want to listen to this and you want to watch that TED Talk instead, go ahead. But I'm only going to take a couple of minutes on the next video and talk about Campbell, okay? So if you want to watch that, great. Keep going. If you don't want to watch that, skip over it and go to the next part, which we're going to be talking about the most important part of any story. And I've already mentioned it, and I bet you know what it is. So we'll talk about that on the flippity flip.